All right. Hey, Max. Hello,
Ludo,
everyone.
thank you so much for having me, Ludo.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everyone, for joining this new episode of Campfire. We are back to what I really enjoy doing, and I think we do best probably, is having a conversation with one of our instructor, and soon also we'll have more conversations with one of our graduates. We've had plenty of guests in the past from Google, from the team, but really those conversations with the people that are making, I would say, the magic inside Nucamp is what I love the most. Um, so, as you all know, we're going to have a conversation with Max. We're going to hear about your journey, Max. But you can ask your own questions. And for you to do that, it's pretty simple. If you're seeing us right now, that means you're on either YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And you probably have a chat button somewhere where you can actually ask the question. We're going to see them here. So don't hesitate, type it in, say hi. um, I'm here. Max is here. Anuja is in the background as well, checking the chat. Last week, we had a ton of bots and spam. That kind of was the very first time for us. Probably a sign of success. I don't know. We'll see. But now Anuja is here to make sure that we take care of those bots. And we have AJV35 here. Hello, how are you? Good to meet you. All right, so we're going to start the conversation with you, Max. Would you mind actually starting by introducing yourself real quick and what do you do at New Camp, and then what do you do in general, and then we'll go back to the beginning of your college days. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Ludo. Yeah, it's great to be here. So I am currently working as a software engineer for AT&T Laboratories, and of course, I'm an instructor as a side job with Nucamp. Both opportunities have been life changing. I really enjoy, working for Nucamp. It's been a very, very interesting job. As far as AT&T, similar sentiments, right? They give me a lot of freedom. It's been very good for my career. So other than that, pretty normal. I'm living here in Denver, so I like snowboarding. Just enjoying the last few days of warm weather before it gets real cold.
Yeah, and I could see your outside your window a few minutes ago, and it looked really very sunny, beautiful, but the kind of sun that premises a cold coming through pretty soon. So I hope it's going to turn into snow as well. When do you think you're going to be able to hit the slopes? Is it like November, December, or maybe earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where you are. So this was actually my first year in Denver. So I don't know like the earliest days that you can go, but I do know that it lasts like, depending on which mountain you choose, it does last pretty late, even into like April and stuff. But in
Oh,
terms of
right.
like the earliest days, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Sometimes when you can actually go, on Black Friday or something like that, that's pretty fun. I've
Yeah,
done
yeah,
that a few
yeah.
times. So, let's talk about what you're doing at New Camp first. Which courses are you teaching? What's your expertise? How often have you taught with us? Can you share a little bit of
Yeah,
that?
so I've done the majority of my courses instructing Python and SQL. I have done a few Python fundamental courses just because I wanted to try and see, where the students were coming from, before my course too. So I would like to take the second one and, instruct that one as well. I haven't done that, but definitely the majority of it has been in the Python and SQL course. So yeah.
Gotcha. And so SQL is kind of your main bread and butter in terms of what you do every day.
I would say Python is, yeah, yeah,
Python.
definitely Python. Certainly familiar with SQL, but more so Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I want to ask you about the job that you have at AT&T. First, because I think the
Yeah.
name AT&T Laboratories is pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I look at you and I'm seeing a computer software engineer scientist as well. I mean, like I see you with a white blouse, and doing experiments. So tell us a little bit. I mean, everybody knows AT&T, but what is AT&T Laboratories?
Yeah, so there's definitely plenty of mad science experiments going on. So I'm very fortunate, right? So it is actually, it's a resource, it's a research branch of AT&T. It is what Bell Labs grew out of. So it's
Oh
certainly
wow.
not the Bell Labs of yesteryear,
Uh-huh.
back in the 70s and, 80s or whatever, 60s to 80s, where they had like an incredible output of really, world changing technologies. Of course, the transistor, the Unix operating system, the C programming language all came out of Bell Labs. So it's, they had Nobel prize winning physicists working for them. It's definitely not that way anymore.
Mhm.
I think a lot of those guys have gone to Google and stuff like that. But it is still, the history is undeniable. So I feel very fortunate to sort of walk the halls and like, absorb the history and say, oh man, these guys created the transistor. That's pretty crazy. So in terms of like what I'm doing now, you know, a lot of data center sort of creations, right? So I work with data centers and sort of interacting with those. So yeah,
Okay. Also, you're in the data center space. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, backend, Python backend. I mean, it all comes together, I'm sure.
yeah,
So hey, I want to take a second to say, hey, if you're listening to us, don't hesitate to ask your questions online. We're here with Max. It's an hour. You can ask Max questions. You can ask me questions about pretty much anything. But let's talk about your beginnings in the computer or the software engineering space. How did it all started for you? Like, how old were you when you figured out that you wanted to pursue something in engineering and software engineering in particular?
yeah. I would say definitely my interest started pretty young. I was like 10 or 11 years old when I would play around on my parents' Gateway computer. I don't even know if they're
I
still like.
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
even know if there's.
a Gateway PC, right?
Yeah, I don't even
Yeah,
know
yeah,
if
yeah.
they're
I
still
remember
public
Gateway.
anymore.
Yeah.
I think Dell might have bought them or something. I forget. But yeah, just trying to look around, right click, inspect source, look at the source code of web pages and stuff. I didn't understand it. You know, some of um, the real computer programmers, they started, they would program on a Commodore or whatever, or they would take their, I've heard plenty of stories of like people saying, yeah, I wrote my first Visual Basic program when I was, 12 years old, so that was never me. I never had that type of skills, I guess. But I definitely had an interest in
Mhm.
computers for sure. Um, it was, I went through the college, I did the courses and stuff like that, was taught mostly in Java. And I started my career in .NET and C Sharp. So it
But you, so
wasn't,
you went pretty fast. So from like
yeah, I jumped a decade.
checking the HTML code of a page at like 12 or 14 years old. Then you went through. Uh, I see. Sorry.
It's a good
Really?
question. I see them too. It's a good question. Yeah.
Probably use punch cards? Really? Really?
Oh, that one.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, I remember Commodore. I remember Gateway. I haven't used punch cards, but that's very nice of you, Jeremy. Um, okay. All right.
Yeah, the
I'm gonna
loom. I just read a really good book about von Neumann. It started with the loom. Von Neumann had one of those, I don't know, textile loom manufacturers, and
yeah,
that's what they used to program like the looms to create different patterns. And then he just
Jesus.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember that either. Brian, great question. We'll get to that question in just a second. We'll get to that. So yeah, 14 years old, you were kind of toying around with the computer, and then after high school, you decided to go to college. And actually, so you went through a computer science degree. Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah. So it was a dual major. So
Okay.
I have two separate degrees, one in computer information science, and then the other is in applied mathematics. So yeah,
Oh,
computer
cool.
information science for sure. Yeah,
Okay,
they
nice.
work
So
well together.
you're in Denver right now, but where did you go to school? Where did you study?
I just went to it was a small backwater school in near my hometown, just a state school, Mansfield University. Shout out to Professor Hayner. You know,
Well, there you go.
he was my mathematics advisor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. All right, so you didn't kind of waste time. You knew pretty much what you wanted to study, what you wanted to do, and you really found your passion pretty early, which is, I mean, in a sense, it's being lucky, right? When you know exactly at a young age what you want to do and you go after it. I know a lot of our students, and you probably see them, right? A lot of students are kind of finding that interest or that passion pretty late in their journey. They had a job before, two jobs maybe, and we are thinking about switching to software engineering now. So, what was your first job then after college? Was it AT&T Laboratories, or did you do something
No,
else before?
no, no, no. Yeah. So, it's interesting because there was certainly a period where, I was a little, I questioned, the degree that I wanted and stuff like that. So you mentioned, certain people are 5 years old and they're just like, I want to be a concert pianist, so that wasn't me. I think I found my career and I found my sort of groove pretty early on, but there certainly was a time. I was studying business at one point. I even did a semester because I thought I wanted to be a dental hygienist. So there was
Oh, okay, yeah. So you did wonder.
I did wander a little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But when I did when I did settle into mathematics and computer information science, it did make a lot of sense. I was going for business, didn't really care. I was going for dental hygiene, cared even less. And then as soon as I found, the math and the computers, I was like, yeah, this feels right. So there's definitely a little bit of wandering. But in terms of the first job I had, yeah, I had the quintessential, jobs that normal college kids have. I worked as a dishwasher for a long time,
Mhm.
at various restaurants. I delivered pizza. They say that, like, having a minimum wage job builds character. I'm not entirely sure about that. I think maybe my time would have been spent better just studying and hitting the
Yeah.
textbooks because minimum wage, it was pretty rough. But yeah, so I had those. I worked at a movie theater for a while. That's always a really fun one because you get to see the movies come out and you get to
Yeah.
go to the movie theater when no one else is there. So that was cool.
Oh, okay. So, and did you do that after college, or was it just during college as well to pay the tuition and things like that?
Pretty much during college, yeah. As
Yeah.
soon as I got out of college, I dropped the minimum wage jobs and started picking up something more lucrative. Yeah.
Okay. So, and
Yeah.
so, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what was your did you get a developer job after college, or how long
Yeah,
did
so
it
I
take you?
was I was still technically in college when I got my first programming job, and I don't know if you look into my background, you might be able to find the place, but it was it was a terrible experience, and I often it's really funny because it's to have the terrible experience is good too, right? It gives you
Mhm.
perspective in what you should be looking for further on down the road. And you can be like, oh, I don't want to repeat what I did earlier with that first job. And we can get into, what, what a good working environment is. But the first job that I had was certainly not that. It was very stressful. And I often tell, like, some of the students this story because I find it hilarious. So one of my really good friends that I still meet up with on pretty much a daily basis to talk about computer science concepts and to really just discuss anything in our careers. He's a very talented programmer, and we both worked at the same place, and it was such a poor working environment that he got disillusioned and almost like stopped programming altogether. Like
Really?
for a little while, he just got like a job in a warehouse, and he almost gave up on it entirely, even though he's like extremely talented. So it was such a bad job that it disillusioned him, which makes
Wow.
me laugh because he's my
So
friend.
I don't want to ask uncomfortable questions. So let me see if we can understand a little bit more what made it such a bad job without kind of giving too much away. was it the technology that was super outdated? Was it the code base that was terrible? Was it just the people, the management? Like, I mean, how do
Yeah,
you, if you could sort
yeah.
of,
It was a lack of understanding. It was high stress. There wasn't really a collaborative atmosphere.
Mhm.
Um, so sort of that, right? You just got very stressed out about the stuff that you had to do. There wasn't really a conversation to alleviate that stress, right?
Yeah.
It like you even now you might get in a work environment that's like stressful, but you have coworkers that you can be like,
Mhm.
man, I'm trying to get this block of code working, and it's not working the way I think it should, and it's pretty stressful. But you can talk to them and you can workshop ideas, and even if you don't get it, sort of that outlet is very beneficial, and you need it, right? And that was certainly absent in the in the first job that I had.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So, um, let's actually, we're going to get to the other jobs you may have had in the meantime, but I want to get to Brian's question. Um, the interview process at AT&T Labs, and how did you prepare for it?
Yeah, so I definitely have my fair share of horror stories in the interview process.
Oh yeah.
But AT&T, the interview process just felt right. It
Mhm.
was, you know, generally in terms of preparing for interview processes in general. I did the stuff that I suggest. Lead code questions are always very good. If there's a programming portion of it, and we can get into the details of how to prepare for certain interviews. But yeah, in terms of the AT&T interview process, it was actually pretty straightforward. They had a coding portion of it where someone would ask me, do this, do that, and it was very relaxed. I've been in situations where there's a timer, there's a prompt, and I'm sweating and I'm angry and people are interrupting me, and I'm like, I can't, like, you got to let me focus. If you want me to do this in 10 minutes, you got to let me focus. But AT&T was very different. It wasn't like a spotlight on me. It was a working session, right? So I had someone say, yeah, can you do this, that, and the other thing? And I would, and be like, oh, okay, that's good. Now can you make it do this? And I'd be like, sure. And then he would get into more advanced stuff, and he'd be like, do you think you could make a generator and stuff like that? And at some point, I was like, I don't really, I start to falter a little bit. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I kind of am familiar with these concepts and whatever. And then he starts explaining it to me. And that's like a green flag, right? They talk about red flags being,
Yeah.
that was like a green flag where I was like, oh, they're willing to fill in the gaps in my knowledge with, a calm, collective attitude, and really, take the time to educate me in areas that I'm less familiar with. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Wow, that's yeah, that's really a positive experience. How many interviews did you have with them before getting the position?
Yeah, I want to say two.
Oh, that's it. Wow, yeah,
Yeah,
jeez. So this is your how many jobs, how many tech jobs have you had before you were able to get into AT&T?
three.
Three. And we always talk, I always tell our students and our graduates, the key to success in getting a job, especially your first one, is going to be networking. Can you comment a little bit of that on that? Like, how did you get the AT&T position? How did you get on their radar, the HR recruiter, and all that?
I think maybe a little bit of it was serendipity, but I think I'm using that word correctly. It wasn't so much direct outreach. I just had a series. I guess it was four. I guess it was four jobs before, but one of them, I can't really get into their heads exactly, but I think I had one sort of project where I was working for a company that was contracted to AT&T,
Oh, I see.
where we built a project for AT&T. And
Yeah.
T. And I think maybe they saw that and they're like, oh, so maybe that's how I got my foot in the door. I can't really say exactly how I got my foot in the door. One of it was just persistence, right? So you mentioned networking, but
Mhm.
I think a big part of it is persistence as well, right? Not giving up, staying
Yeah.
calm, applying every so often to a few jobs. So I didn't really, I didn't directly know someone and say like, hey, can I get a job there? They actually came to me,
I was gonna say it sounded like they came to
yeah,
you.
yeah, they did. It was weird. It was cool. It was cool.
That's
But
brilliant.
they,
Yeah.
yeah,
So and who came to you? Was it an HR recruiter or was it the hiring manager directly?
yeah, I think it was an HR recruiter. Yeah, it was a recruiter. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing right now, and I know we're going to lean into the machine learning work that you're doing. But I want to take Jeremy's feedback here or question. 100% on lean code problem for JP Morgan, but still didn't get to the hackathon, so whole process was a black box to me. And then got my ass whooped on a 3-hour SpaceX Codility challenge. Uh, wow. Yeah, sorry to hear, Jeremy. I mean, it's good that you were ready for leaked code. I know JP Morgan, their hackathon is super hard to get into. There's a lot of applicants. So I couldn't really help as well. I don't know why you didn't get into it. I know they're really looking for uh, individuals that do not have a bachelor degree. So I don't know if you have a bachelor degree, Jeremy. That may be one of the reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty rough. And they have another cohort starting in January. JP Morgan has. So you can always try again, I think. One thing I know about JP Morgan is they put a lot of emphasis on collaboration. Although I think they really they only measure that during the hackathon. So yeah, um, I wouldn't say that's something they would have checked earlier. And I would love to hear more, Jeremy, on the SpaceX Codility Challenge. I'm not familiar with. Are you familiar with it, Max? What they are doing at SpaceX?
No, I'm not. I'm not familiar with their specific challenges. But in terms of like why he didn't get it, it's who knows. Yeah, I mean, you clearly performed well. So
Yeah.
maybe the person looking at it was just grumpy that day, and you just
Well, I
didn't get
think
it.
yeah, Jeremy just answered. I have a master. It could be the only reason, Jeremy. It could be the one and only reason. Here's the thing: those programs that are out there, apprenticeship like programs or junior entry level type of programs, they get sponsorship from the government, the federal government. Uh, if the person who's being hired doesn't have a bachelor degree, I think there's actually hard requirements on only being able to kind of fund those positions from the government. So it's a government requirement pretty much. And so that's why I know Accenture is going to do that. JP Morgan is going to do that. Like they're not going to accept applicants that have more than a bachelor degree because if they do, they're not going to get the grant from the government. So it's a sad reason, but it's what could have just happened. So it pretty much didn't matter how you scored and what you did, Jeremy, for that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
certainly, definitely overqualified, Jeremy. So
yeah,
that's a good
in
thing,
a
man.
sense. Yeah, yeah. And I know Accenture, so they have programs that are really targeting those governmental grants and apprenticeship and junior entry types where you can't have a bachelor degree, but they also have programs where you have to have a bachelor's degree, which is the right thing to do if you're a company, right? You don't want to close any doors. So yeah. Um, and here's a statement. Yes, exactly. Not having a degree can be beneficial. Uh, Absolutely. Those exist. So, Max, let's. There was I read somewhere. I think Irene, you shared that with Irene. That the way they noticed you was a program that you wrote. Um, Let me see if I find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was built with Flask. And then, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, can you tell us a little about that project that you created that got a lot of attention?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was fun. So I had a few projects that I had built it with Flask before. So I did have a little bit of API development experience with Flask before I got this job. But this one in particular was, which I think possibly opened up the door to AT&T. It was a really short contract. I was working with a few other developers, and it was how can I describe it? You stepped into an apparatus that had a series of iPhones around that would take various photos and gather different types of data, depth, whatever type of data you can gather from
Mhm.
like an iPhone camera. So, and they would route that data through the API that I built, and they would generate some like funny little like scenes, right? Rendering, 3D rendering
Oh, 3D
scenes.
rendering with
Yeah,
your APIs.
yes, with with Blender. I was just getting the data to where it needed to go.
I see.
But as soon as they got there, they would do some like three-dimensional rendering with Blender and stuff. Is how I
Ah,
believe
that
it went.
sounds really cool.
It was
So
cool.
you
Yeah.
built the REST APIs that was pretty much receiving the data from the iPhones and then sending that over to Blender.
Yeah,
That's what you
essentially, yeah, machines running Blender that would
yeah.
do the rendering, which was pretty computationally intensive.
Were
So yeah,
you providing back the data from Blender as well as a result
it's been a while. I can't remember. I can't remember.
it
Yeah, it's
was
been a
just
few years.
it was getting processed and then you pretty much saying, hey, okay,
Yeah,
it's being processed and that's
yeah,
that.
yeah. So that's super relevant because right now the Python and SQL class that I have right now it's week 3 and it's all about Flask web development and API development. So it was pretty relevant and yeah, it was good.
Pretty cool. So again, folks, if you're listening to us, Max and I, we're really fortunate to have Max here on this campfire. As a reminder, Max is an instructor with Nucamp. You've been with us for how long now?
Over 2 years, I want to
Over
say.
2 years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, and this is what I love to do. And you know what? Let me do that. I love to check out what Anuja is saying. Started September 2021. There you go. Let's check out your
Sounds about right.
score. And Irene was telling me how much students really love having you as their
Oh no,
as
are we looking at my reviews? Oh gosh.
yeah. Sorry. Let,
Let's,
let's you want to bring that up? Ah, there you go. There you go.
yeah, let's do it.
Um, I don't know if you can see it easily here, but you've delivered Python SQL 16 times.
Let's go. Let's do it.
And out of 669 ratings, you've been rated, this is ridiculous, 4.88 average. That's the thing that blows my mind all the time with our instructors, and you're pretty much at the top of what I would consider a great score. But this is out of 5, and the fact that students consistently are giving you, like, the average is 4.88. Can you imagine that? That's amazing. So
It's really
congrats.
it's been when I get feedback from students that is positive, it really it's I appreciate it a lot, so it's definitely not lost. Um, yeah, it's very kind words.
And we have Irene confirming here that you're an awesome instructor. So
Thank you.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Te- and I know it's not too sexy because I read the notes, but tell us, why did you end up becoming a new camp instructor? How did that happen?
Yeah. So again, I guess I'm not. I'm gonna look up this word and I'll
Yeah,
find out that I'm
serendipity.
using. Yeah, it's gonna be like something that was completely incorrect, but
No,
yeah,
I
a
think
little bit of
serendipity is
serendipity,
like
right?
it was bound to happen, something like that, I guess.
Well, I think yeah, in the sense that I saw the job listing for you guys, and I thought I tossed my resume out there, and I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to start teaching for you guys. And I could never have imagined that it would be as interesting or beneficial to my career as it has been. Right. So being
Oh,
able to
interesting.
interact with these
Yeah.
students and interact with people from all over the world, I've instructed people from Lagos, Nigeria,
Yeah.
from California. So like across countries, across hemispheres, across the world. So it's been also, not just geologically or geographically diverse, but the types of students come in such a wide range of abilities, right? So I've been fortunate enough to interact with people that have been writing code in COBOL, and they just want to, see what the new stack is. So they come and they want to learn about Python. So,
You mean the
but
people
also,
who remember the punch cards, right?
yeah,
Or,
yeah, the
or
punch card, yeah, COBOL, yeah, Fortran and stuff like that.
yeah.
And that's really cool to have, to be able to um, convey some of those ideas to those guys, but also, people just starting out in high school and stuff, and they're just trying to get their feet wet to understand about it, see what's going on with this type of career. So just a wide range of people that I've been able to interact with, and I feel very fortunate to have that experience.
Yeah. And Irene is confirming serendipity, the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. So, hey, well done. And Brian confirms that it's especially good for a math guy, meaning English wasn't your major. I guess that's what it means. Um, so, can you tell us stories about you and your students? I know it's and without maybe revealing, of course, things that are meant to stay private. But can you tell us kind of anything on the opposite spectrum, meaning kind of inspiring stories? I know some instructors sometimes receive notes from students who graduated and saying, "Hey, I loved you and you helped me get that job," or something like that, I guess. And then maybe maybe like more challenging stories where you really saw the struggle, you really saw um, the tough decisions had to be made. Can you share us a little bit of your experience in that space?
I'm really glad you asked that question, Ludo, because there is that side as well. I think I have an all right rating, but there's certainly I read the comments. They say don't read the comments. I read the comments, and I've gotten real bummed out a few times. I try my
Yeah.
best. I make sure I'm available all the time, and to have critical feedback it's humbling. It's frustrating at times, because I do put a lot of effort into it, and I hope that I can convey an effective course and impart lessons that students can take with them. Right? It's much more than just textbook stuff. Right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
interacting with encouragement, feeling emotions and stuff like that. So um, when I get some less than positive feedback, I think that's just how it goes, right? I think that I can improve. I think there's certainly places where I can improve, but I'm also aware that certain people you just can't satisfy. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what you do.
It's there's an ongoing conversation around instructor feedback,
Yeah,
and I think there will always be at the very beginning of New Camp. There was a question where we were like, okay, do we really want to share the feedback with instructors?
yeah.
And one of the reason we were thinking that we should not share it is fearing that the feedback will be too harsh and that instructors may not be interested or equipped to deal with it
It has.
because it's a side job, because we're tapping into your interest in helping others. It all comes from a good heart and a positive approach. And we were worried that, okay, if we share the feedback, there's always going to be dissatisfaction sometimes, and it's going to be too tough on instructors. But then we turned around and we're like, hey, fundamentally we want to treat everyone with respect, and we treat everyone as adults and trust everyone involved. And so if there's feedback, you guys have to see it, the good, the bad, the average. But you have to be empowered in a way to know what the feedback is and to deal with it. Um, what are your thoughts? Like, would you rather not see any feedback? Would you? How would you? Like, if you were to think, like, put yourself in our shoes. What's best?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that I sort of get to talk to you, Ludo, and hear some of the insights around that because it does affect you mentally, right? You know,
Yeah.
reading some of that negative feedback for a couple of days, right? You can you can
Oh yeah, a
real
couple of days. Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
really be bummed out. Look, I think what you're doing is perfect. You know, I think maybe interacting with some of the people that have less thick of a skin, right? You know, we got to make sure that in terms of the instructor community,
Hmm.
that this is just something that's inherent, and this is something that I actually reached out to Irene
Yeah.
very early on, and she gave me some really good advice. So I think if the instructor community sort of conveys, which I think we do, conveys that, like, hey, like, you're good, don't try not to let it get to you.
Yeah.
It's I think that's fine. In terms of, I wouldn't change anything. I think it's beneficial, and it's an interesting experience as an instructor to have to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want, it's not all butterflies and rainbows, right? You got to be able to deal with the less than positive feedback sometimes. So in terms of what I wouldn't change anything, Ludo. I think
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
And sometimes some students forget it's an actual human being on the other end. You know, it's like
Yeah.
they're gonna be upset and they're gonna and we're telling them, hey, remember, there's a real person on the other hand, right? It's not just like Nucamp the company. No, it's your instructor who's doing that, kind of on the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be tough. I think we've lost a few, not too many, but we've lost a few really good instructors who were really putting a lot of effort and energy in helping, their students, and couldn't really vibe or, their approach there, you know, they, they got a little bit too much negative feedback, even though
Right.
they were really, really passionate about it. It kind of didn't work for them. And having that feedback was very straining, and they quit. They're like, I can't do it anymore. We had nothing but, wanting to support them, but they just was too much.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I wasn't aware of that. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
um so Jeremy, he's having fun right now. Raytheon code base, I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh man, is that are you doing that for pleasure, Jeremy, or is
Doesn't
that like
sound like
you
it.
have
No
to
one,
do
no
it?
one reviews C++ for pleasure. Come
Yeah,
on,
like
no one does that.
I have a
That's a
couple of hours. Why don't I take the Raytheon code base in C++ and reviewing it? We'd love to hear more about that, Jeremy. It's kind of it's puzzling, I'll say.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then we have Brian saying, there's a growth mindset that is essential to learning tech. That's not common in other fields, even in traditional education. Any tips on how to bounce back from bombing a technical interview or review?
So yeah, I'd like to speak to this one if I could,
Yes,
Ludo.
go
Right.
for it. Yeah.
So it just comes down to the persistence, right? I've had, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I've had plenty of bad interviews, right? And
Mhm.
I've walked out of interviews because I've been too stressed out, right?
Oh wow. Yeah.
It's just, it's, and maybe I dealt with it poorly. But I've had very strenuous interviews that I've definitely bombed. So how to bounce back from that? Don't overdo it, right? Don't try and do it all at once, right? You can't you can't run a marathon by just like training all of a sudden. Piece it up, do it a little bit every day, and consistency and persistence apply to a couple of jobs every day. Don't spend 6 hours a day applying the work. You're gonna lose your mind. You're gonna pull a hamstring. Don't pull a hamstring. Just take it easy and just do a little bit consistently. So that's the advice I have for that. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
give up. Don't give up.
Yeah. No, it's tough. And I don't know if there's inspiration to get, from, the quarterback, losing a ball or something like that, where you have to get back into it, and you have to train your mind to not take it personally. I think that's probably the hardest, like to believe that you're at fault, you're no good, when you should really think differently, in a sense where, hey, like, what can you learn from that? Move on, do better next time, and don't let that get to who you are, and the skills that you think you've acquired. Jeremy works at Booz Allen. Pretty cool.
Hey,
Uh,
Booz Allen rejected me. I tried
oh, there
to,
you go.
yeah, I tried to get a job for Booz Allen. They were like, nah, man.
Yeah, yeah. I will not. I will not even try. I don't even think. Actually, do you have to be a born citizen, or can you be a naturalized citizen to work in a defense company?
I don't know. It's
I
a
don't
good
know.
question.
Yeah.
But in terms of Raytheon and C++, I do want to talk about that real quick,
Yeah.
Luke. So it's interesting because one of the benefits of being an instructor is, you get some really talented students coming through. And, I had one student mention to me some technology that I wasn't aware of. And, it's sort of like it's a shift away from, C++ and stuff like that, it's a superset of Python. And, maybe it's aiming to replace C++ and those types of code bases. But I wasn't aware of it until
What's the language? Is that
it's
do you
Mojo. Yeah, I don't know.
Mojo?
Yeah, it's a superset of Python. So I had no idea
Huh.
this even existed
Yeah, me neither.
until
Let me look it up.
a
So
student
cool.
mentioned it, because I had been thinking about learning something, like C++ or even C. But after hearing about this superset, I don't really want to do it. I don't want to learn C++ now if I don't have to.
Well, look
And
at that. They call it Python plus plus.
yeah, so I had no idea this existed. It was brought
Yeah.
up to me by a student, and yeah, so it's a superset of Python. It was designed by the guy who created Swift for
Okay.
Apple. So
Yeah.
he's designing this in collaboration with some AI developers at Google. So we'll
And
see if it catches on.
it's super recent, like first appear like this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. It's very new. It's very new. So we'll see if it catches on. It'll be very cool. But among other things, I think typing in Python, right? If you want to, and it's a superset, right? So it's
Yeah.
there if you want it, but you don't
It's
have to
like
use it.
TypeScript in a way.
Exactly.
TypeScript
Yeah.
and JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
So what does it do different then? Why would anyone care about that?
Yeah, so typing speed, it speeds up some of the shortcomings of Python, I
Okay.
guess, right? I don't know too much about the hardware, but maybe it lets you execute on various cores simultaneously or something like that.
Oh, I
Maybe
see.
Python.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
why it's
more.
so important for AI as well. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's geared towards optimizing hardware. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's geared towards more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's cool. Well, so let's talk about it. That's kind of the title of this campfire. You have a real passion for Python, we know, and but also recently you've really uh, delved into data, machine learning, manipulating data, and the world of AI. Can you tell us a little bit of what you've been working on?
Yeah, so it might be a little less exciting, but it does tie into sort of the gratitude I have for working with AT&T. It's a research lab, so they're very good about letting me explore what I find interesting, right? So I have sort of a set of tasks that I have to do, that I can do pretty easily, and they're like, "Hey, you do this, we're good," and then you come to them with ideas, and you're like, "Hey, maybe I should try this out or this," and they're very supportive. They're like, "Yeah, of course, go for it, try it,"
Mhm.
and ML is one of those. So, I have a lot of experience with like the base sort of technologies surrounding ML. I'm very fluent with pandas. I'm really good, in Jupyter. I feel at home writing notebooks and stuff like that, and interacting with data frames. But in terms of ML, it's still very nascent, right? I'm still just sort of getting into it. So I'm definitely not an authoritative, source on it, but it is something that I do want to get into more of, just because it just makes more sense to me in a way. It's definitely where the industry is going as well. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like the next natural progression, right? So like
Oh yeah.
when I first started out, I was like, I want to get familiar with Flask and web development. I got the job with doing that web API, and I wanted to do pandas and stuff, and I was doing pandas at AT&T, and now I'm sort of shifting over to ML, and I want to kind of learn that. So that's kind of how that originated. I forget
So
the question. What was the
yeah, yeah,
question?
absolutely. So there's a difference, right, between ML and AI. I mean, it's very connected, obviously.
Yeah.
So what brings you to ML versus what I consider kind of being a little bit harder, like AI going directly into, and I would say a consuming AI, kind of open AI APIs and stuff like that. Like why the world of ML? Is it because it kind of I mean goes on top of what you're doing from a data standpoint and Python standpoint?
For sure. It just feels like the next natural
Yeah.
progression. Also, the mathematics degree that I had,
Oh
it
yeah.
comes in handy, right?
Yeah.
We had plenty of linear algebra courses. I've
Mhm.
had countless calculus courses. So it's, to go to ML, I'm just starting to read these ML textbooks and stuff, and to hear about, transposing matrices and
Mhm.
linear algebra vocabulary words like y hat and stuff like that. And it's very it's cool to sort of tap into that underlying math experience that I have, and it is just seems like the next natural progression. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So do you have like you're just starting, but do you have, I guess, a data set that you're thinking about using? Do you have like kind of a use case or a project that you have in mind that's going to be
Yeah, so
preparing you?
yeah, it's a great question. So kind of a little bit of both, right? I do have, I have some existing projects that I've sort of gone and worked through. So sort of like I built my first ML model not too long ago. It was an anomaly detection model where I took some like response times, and I tried to train some response times, which is just like numeric data about how long a
Mhm.
process took, to see if we were making calls and they were taking too long. And the whole process was really interesting. So that was an existing data set that I sort of created a use case for. But it's a very interesting question, because what comes first, the data set that you make the use case out of, or the use case that you have to fit the data set
Oh
to?
yeah. Mhm.
Right. So that's, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think you can approach both of them from either side. Um, but yeah, so there's definitely some other ones where I see an existing data set, and I'm thinking, I'm like, how can I, feed this through an ML model? Is it, because invariably I will have ideas, and then I'll try and do it, and then I'll just like not understand, or I'll hit a brick wall, and that's just part of the growth. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's take Clara's question, and then I'll comment on your question, Jeremy. And I want to talk about something else as well. I don't want to miss it, which is your LinkedIn profile or lack thereof. But let's take Clara's question first. What's the best Nucamp bootcamp to take if I'm trying to eventually switch to ML? And the answer is going to be straightforward. I'm currently an engineer in the defense industry. A lot of people with defense clearance and in defense industry right now. Pretty cool. And programming experience is limited to MATLAB. The answer is, Max, the backend with Python, SQL, DevOps. We do more than preparing you to ML, but everything that you're going to learn for Python, data management, data manipulation, that's going to prepare you for ML. And then you're going to do some DevOps as well, which can't hurt. You're going to probably use it at some point, anyways. Do you want to comment on that? Like, what's the distance, I will say, in terms of what we teach and what we don't teach in the Python curriculum to eventually switch to ML?
Yeah,
What's left to learn?
Yeah, it's a great topic, Ludo. So week 4 in the Python and SQL course, is heavily focused on Python's data science stack. Jupyter, Pandas, Matplotlib, and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good intro. I'm a little, I think we could have an entire course on just Jupyter, Pandas,
Oh
and
yeah.
ML. Just data manipulation. Just get rid of the SQL, maybe. I mean, I prefer
Oh,
manipulation.
SQL is so fundamental, though. You
You got to
Oh
you got
no,
to
you
know
can't.
at least
Did you
a
just say
little bit.
that?
You got to know at least a little bit of SQL. But if
Yeah.
I'm doing transformations on a data set, I'm doing it in Pandas. I'm not doing it in SQL.
All right.
So we do touch on that for sure. Maybe a new course could come out where it's just focused solely on the data science stack. But yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and so let's talk about this. That's a question from Jeremy. So, waiting for more. So, I have an announcement to make between us. We're going to announce in the next couple of weeks an experiment of ours. We're playing with AI quite a bit. We've been playing with AI ever since, last November. We're going to launch a free course that's an adaptation of Eloquent JavaScript, the book. What's the experiment behind that is the course is 100% AI,
Hmm.
meaning it's been AI produced. So we created our own course production engine. It's going to be graded by AI. There's going to be an AI tutor. I mean, a lot of the things that you've seen already, Max, right? We have the Debuginator, we have Astro and things like that. It's an experiment because we're playing with it, and this is not exactly what we want for the business. Like I do not believe in everything AI. I believe in AI plus humans. So we need a little bit of AI. It's going to probably be bigger and bigger and bigger as we go along, but we absolutely need the human touch, the instructor, the classroom, the students working together. And so we're kind of, that's our foray into experimenting with AI a little bit. In terms of quality, we're not there yet. I don't think the quality is going to be, as good as what our standards are. But we're going to put it out there. It's going to be free, and we're going to get as much feedback as we can. So that's going to be that. Next, we're going to launch cybersecurity. There's a big demand around that, so that's going to be in 2024. And yes, data science is definitely on our radar. I can't commit to any date or anything like that, but definitely a good follow up, I will say, to our Python bootcamp.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad I still have a future at Nucamp, Ludo, and I'm not.
Yeah,
They're not taking
this is
over my
key.
job.
I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? Everybody's going to do AI. It's going to be easier to do. There's not going to be a ton of differentiation, you know, in the AI space. You've heard, that Google scientists saying, "Hey, we don't have moat. Like, there's no way to differentiate ourselves when everybody does AI." And so that's what's going to happen in education. Everybody's going to have an AI tutor, right? That's going to be baseline. And what we're doing right now in the AI course production space, everybody's going to do eventually as well.
Yeah.
But what I truly believe is going to be unique, and actually I believe students are going to ask for that more and more, is that human touch. I really believe in the dystopian future where the human race is just tired of all those AI. Imagine Blade Runner when you're listening to yet another AI and all you want is just break the neck of the of the machine because you can't stand it anymore. Uh,
So I have a question for you, Ludo. So
yeah.
are you generally pessimistic or optimistic about the future of technology?
I'm more in a pessimistic camp.
Okay.
Um, Not for the future of technology. I think technology is going to accelerate even faster. I'm more
Sure.
pessimistic for the future of humanity.
Sure.
Like I have a kid that just started college and one that's going to follow in a few years, and I'm actually worried for them. I'm like, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to learn? Um, I was more worried a couple of months ago when the hype of OpenAI and what AI will do was so high. Uh, that hype is starting to come down a little bit. Like We're seeing the models, slow down and not be as good as they used to be, and then people are like saying, "Well, we're not going to hit AGI that quickly." But yeah, what about
So,
you?
so yeah, it's really interesting. So, there's a great Lex Friedman
Yeah,
talk with Noam Chomsky, who's of
yeah,
course a world-renowned linguist, right?
yeah,
And Lex Friedman kind of asked him, are we going to learn some like fundamental truths through AI that were previously unknown? And Noam Chomsky said something really interesting. He was just like, I think it's just going to be more like a utility, right? AI is just going to turn into like just a utility like anything else, just like roads
mhm,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
So I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it.
definitely. So we have 4 minutes to talk about one topic I
Yeah,
really wanted to touch on. So
yeah,
you've had 4 jobs in tech.
yeah,
You're now at AT&T Laboratories, which sounds dope.
yeah,
You're a new camp instructor, and you've done all that without a LinkedIn profile.
yeah.
Now, how? Like, first, so you must you've done that on purpose, right? Like, so tell me why don't you have a LinkedIn profile right now?
Yeah,
And
it's a great
what did that bother anyone who've actually engaged with you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ludo, and I think it touches on some more broad, you know, some more broad topics or demeanors that I carry with me.
Mhm.
Nothing. There's no one thing. There's no one silver bullet. You're not going to get the best job in the world just because you have a LinkedIn profile. You're not going to, land the dream job because you modified your resume to have, a different type of font or a different type of wording, right? You're not going to get a job just because you have a great GitHub profile. All of those matter. I think if you have the time, I think you should set up the LinkedIn. I think you should set up the GitHub. For sure, you should. I value GitHub over LinkedIn for sure.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's one answer for landing a good job, right? And I was navigating that arena, looking and applying, and everyone sort of mentioned to me that you need a LinkedIn, and I was like, I don't think I do. I don't think I do. So there's no
Was it a
one silver
contrarian?
bullet.
Was it your maybe a contrarian type of mindset
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to be like everyone else?
That's what it was. Yeah, I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be
Yeah.
cool. I was just like, hey, go to my GitHub and look at my code and check that out. I don't. What is it? Facebox and LinkedIn. I don't know.
So
No,
do you have a Twitter account?
no Twitter, no Twitter.
Not
I have
Twitter.
an Instagram account,
Okay.
but yeah, it's definitely a contrarian type of thing. But also, in all seriousness, there is no one magic bullet.
Yeah.
I think that's
And I mean, GitHub is a great response, especially if you're paying attention really, and kind of if it shines,
yeah,
you're gonna find a lot of people respecting, being sent to a GitHub that shines
for
versus a
sure.
LinkedIn that's pretty much like everybody else's.
Yeah.
Um, so hey, Max, one last word or one, piece of wisdom from you. The audience here is, some are students, some are prospects. People are wondering, am I going to join Nucamp? What would you like to say to them?
I think you definitely got to give it a shot. I think you should try Nucamp. We'll talk to you. It's not just all AI bots. We've been through the experience that you've been through. We've learned. We've had mistakes, and we'd love to impart some of that on anyone who's willing to listen. So give it a shot.
Well, thank you. That's really well said. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thanks a lot. Thanks a ton. Next, we'll have an instructor, or hopefully a graduate, recent graduate as well. Not sure if it's going to be next week or the week after, but really looking forward to the next shows. And Max, thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you a great ski season or snowboarding season, I should say. Send pictures when you're on the slope for the very first time. That'll be great. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Ludo. Bye.
See ya. Oh, let me actually play that thing, the outro. Bing.